Chapter 1. The Hook. The storm that changed everything. The storm came without warning. One moment the forest was still, suffocatingly silent beneath an overcast sky. The next thunder cracked open the heavens, and the rain fell like knives. Mara Gray yanked her hood tighter, stumbling over roots slick with moss and mud. Her boots were soaked through. Her jeans clung to her legs like a second, freezing skin. But she kept going, teeth clenched, eyes locked on the narrow trail vanishing into the gloom. Branches whipped her arms, wind screamed in her ears, and through it all, something followed, something unseen. She didn't want to believe it. Not again. After all, she'd come out here to disappear, not to die. The forest around Black Hollow had always been full of legends. The kind whispered at bars and told to scare children, of shadows that walked like men, of beasts that howled when the moon was wrong, of things older than bones and teeth. She never believed in any of it. Not until tonight. She crested a ridge and saw it, the crumbling outline of an old cabin, hunched beneath a canopy of skeletal pines. Its porch sagged under the weight of snowmelt, windows shuttered tight, smoke chimney long cold. Forgotten, but not by her. She'd found it 2 years ago during one of her therapy hikes, a secret place to breathe when the world felt like it was closing in. The broken parts of her had recognized it. Just like now, she raced to the door and forced it open, nearly falling as she shoved inside. The smell hit her first: damp wood, ash, old dust. Familiar, safe. Mara slammed the door shut, twisting the old iron lock, chest heaving. For a long moment, she simply leaned against it, head bowed, hands trembling. Everything hurt. Her body, her pride, her heart. She was done running from the city, from her ex, from the life that had chewed her up and spit her out. She was done trusting people who smiled while stabbing her in the back. She didn't need anyone anymore. She didn't need anything but silence and solitude. That's what she told herself. Then the growl came, low, guttural, right outside the cabin. Her eyes flew to the window. Nothing. But she felt it, something massive pacing through the trees. Something not afraid of storms or locked doors. She grabbed the iron poker from beside the fireplace and inched toward the window. The glass was fogged. The forest was a smear of black and gray. Another growl, closer this time. Then bang. The door buckled inward. Mara screamed and scrambled back. The poker trembled in her grip. Something slammed into the door again, but this time, it wasn't trying to break in. It was falling through. The door burst open, and a massive shape collapsed onto the cabin floor. A wolf, or something like one. Its fur was black as smoke, shimmering with silver where the firelight caught it. Blood soaked its flank, the gash torn wide as if by claws. Its breaths came shallow, ragged. One eye was swollen shut, the other locked on her, gleaming with an unnatural intelligence that made her heart stutter. It was watching her, begging her. The poker slipped from her hand. She didn't understand what she was doing, only that her fear had vanished, replaced by something strange and ancient and magnetic. She knelt beside it. Its breath ghosted across her palm. Its blood was warm, sticky. She spoke softly, instinctively, like to a wounded animal. "You're hurt, badly," the wolf whimpered. "You're not going to die here. Not like this." And without thinking, she tore strips from her hoodie, soaking them in melted snow water from the tin kettle, and began to clean the wound. The skin beneath the fur was torn open like tissue, brutal, deep, and wrong. Not a hunter's shot. No, these were claw marks. Something bigger had done this. Another wolf? No, something worse. The storm roared outside, but inside the cabin, there was only the sound of her heartbeat and the faint rise and fall of the wolf's chest. Hours passed. The fire crackled. The air warmed. She didn't sleep. She just sat there, watching the creature breathe, wondering who he was, what he was, because somewhere in her gut, deep and cold and undeniable, she knew this wasn't just a wild animal. And the way he'd looked at her, it wasn't fear, it was recognition. She dozed off without meaning to. When she woke, the storm had passed, and the air in the cabin felt wrong, off, as if the center of gravity had shifted. The wolf was gone. She shot up, her hand reaching instinctively for the poker, and froze. There was a man on the floor, naked, bleeding, unconscious. He was lying where the wolf had been. The blood trail matched. The gash in his side, the same place she'd bandaged the beast. Her world tilted. He was tall, built like a predator carved from shadow and stone. His skin was pale beneath the dried blood and dirt, muscles straining even in stillness. Midnight black hair clung to his face. and his chest it bore a scar in the exact place she'd cleaned, still crusted with her torn hoodie strips. She stumbled back, horror and awe battling inside her. This wasn't human. Or, not just human. Her mouth was dry. What the hell? Are you? His eyes opened. Silver, liquid, piercing. They locked onto hers, and in them, she saw everything. Pain, power, hunger, recognition. Her breath caught. Then he spoke, voice hoarse, ragged, but filled with something primal. You shouldn't have helped me. Mara's heart hammered, because deep down she knew, whatever he was, whatever she'd just dragged into her life, she'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Chapter 2. Unlikely meeting. The man with the wolf's eyes expanded. Mara had never felt time crawl like this before. Minutes bled into each other like water into snow, slow and heavy, as she stared across the room at the man who shouldn't exist. He sat slumped against the stone hearth, wrapped in the old wool blanket she'd found in a moth-eaten chest. His head hung low, but those eyes, silver, haunted, inhuman, watched her from beneath wet strands of black hair. You shouldn't have helped me, he'd said. She hadn't stopped hearing those words since. She stood by the window now, arms wrapped around herself. The poker she'd wielded earlier leaned forgotten against the wall, somehow useless in the presence of him. He hadn't made a move to attack, not yet, but the tension in the air was razor thin. Outside, the storm had passed. The snow had softened the forest again, blanketing the trees in ghostly white, muffling every sound. But there was no peace in the silence. It felt like the world was holding its breath. Mara turned, finally speaking the question she'd been choking on. That wolf last night. That was you, wasn't it? He didn't answer at first, but then he nodded once slowly. A shiver traveled down her spine. I thought I was going insane, she said, half laughing under her breath. I thought maybe I hit my head, but I bandaged you. And then this morning. She gestured helplessly at him. He looked like a soldier. His body bore the marks of war, bruises in shades of black and violet, claw marks that hadn't yet scabbed. But it was more than that. He radiated something ancient, like the forest itself had carved him out of ice and fury. My name is Mara, she said, her voice softer now. Since we've apparently skipped several normal steps of meeting someone, he looked at her again, his jaw clenched, throat bobbing as he swallowed something unspoken. Killian. The name rolled off his tongue like it didn't belong to. Just a man, like it was older, heavier, earned through pain. Mara stepped a little closer, but still kept a cautious distance. Are you going to tell me what you are? Killian's eyes narrowed slightly. You already know. I have guesses, she admitted. Werewolf? Shifter? Demon? You can't expect me to just accept this without answers. He tilted his head, studying her, almost amused despite the pain etched into every line of his face. You're handling this better than most. Maybe I'm too tired to scream. He almost smiled, almost. Then his face darkened again. You shouldn't be here. You need to leave the hollow. Now. Mara crossed her arms. If you wanted me gone, you shouldn't have bled all over my floor. He looked away at that, jaw flexing. She kept going, voice sharper. I dragged you inside. I cleaned your wounds. I kept you alive. You want me to walk away now like nothing happened? Killian turned his eyes back to her, and there was fire in them now. You don't understand what's coming. Then explain it. Silence stretched between them. Only the crackle of fire would fill the space. Finally, he said, there's a war, and I'm on the losing side. Mara blinked. What kind of war? Old bloodlines, broken treaties, betrayals that go back centuries. My kind were not supposed to exist outside the clans, but I broke the rules. He winced as he adjusted his position, pain rippling across his features. Mara instinctively moved forward to help, but he raised a hand to stop her. Don't, he said. Touching me right now, it'll make things worse. Her brows furrowed. Why? His gaze bore into her. Because you felt it too, didn't you? When you looked at me. She froze. The air between them charged instantly, like static before a lightning strike. She hadn't said it aloud, but yes, something had shifted in her when their eyes first met. Not lust, not fear, something more visceral, like recognition, like her bones had known him before her mind had. What is it? She asked quietly. Killian exhaled hard. I don't know yet, but I've felt it once before. And that ended in blood. Mara's skin prickled. You're not making me feel less nervous, you know. I'm trying to protect you. That's funny, considering I'm the one who saved you. He actually let out a dry laugh at that, the sound low and hollow. You've got fire. I'll give you that. They lapsed into silence again, but this time it wasn't heavy, it was searching. Killian's head leaned back against the stone. He looked so tired. His skin was pale beneath the streaks of dried blood and ash. His breaths were shallow, labored. Why were you near the cabin last night? She asked. Was it a coincidence? No. He shook his head. I was trying to reach sanctuary before the moon shifted. There's an old boundary marker near here. It used to belong to my clan before the Blackfangs claimed it. Blackfangs? Another pack. Brutal. They hunt down any lone wolves outside sanctioned bloodlines. I wasn't supposed to survive last night, but you did, because you got in the way. Mara stared at him. No one was supposed to find me, he continued. Not a human. Not someone like you. Her stomach twisted at that. Someone like me? Killian didn't answer. Instead, he closed his eyes, exhaustion finally winning. Over. I'll explain more later. If you're smart, you'll be gone before nightfall. And if I'm not, he opened one eye. Then don't open the door for anything. Even if it sounds like someone you know. That chilled her more than anything. I wasn't planning to invite the forest in for tea. His lips curved, just barely. Then silence. Killian drifted into unconsciousness, breath slowing, chest rising and falling in the firelight. The blanket slipped slightly, revealing a deep scar etched across his side, old and faded, but unmistakably clawed. Mara sat down slowly beside the hearth. Across from him, she didn't know what she was doing. She didn't know why she hadn't run, but something in her refused to leave. She had run from everything else in her life, from people who broke her, from cities that used her up and spat her out. But this man, this wolf, had been left for dead and still fought to survive, and somehow, she was part of it now. Something ancient stirred in the woods beyond the cabin. Mara heard it in the wind, whatever Killian had brought into her world. It wasn't done with her yet. Chapter 3. Suspicion and curiosity. Eyes in the dark. Mara didn't sleep that night, even as Killian drifted in and out of fevered unconsciousness, the fire low and the air biting with mountain cold. Her mind refused rest. Something ancient had shifted in her life the moment he crossed her threshold, something she couldn't name. She watched him through the flickering shadows of the firelight. Even unconscious, his body looked strained, as if his muscles remembered battle even when his mind didn't. His breathing was shallow to fast. His skin glistened with sweat, a sharp contrast to the cool air of the cabin. She approached with a wet cloth, hesitating only briefly before gently wiping his brow. He stirred, his lips parted in a low murmur. Mara. Her breath caught. He didn't open his eyes, but he knew she was there. She dropped the cloth, heart thudding against her ribs, and stepped away. Whatever connection pulls between them, this strange thread of awareness, it was too strong to ignore. She crossed to the window and stared out into the dark. The storm had cleared, but the forest had not returned to peace. Something moved. Out there. She couldn't see it, but she felt it, like eyes pressed against the glass of the world, watching, waiting. The trees were too still, the moon far too bright. Her fingers traced the frosty windowsill. Her thoughts ran like wild water. Who was Killian? What exactly had she brought into her life? And why, deep in her bones, did she feel like he was already part of it? By morning, Killian was awake and very much alert. Mara stood in the kitchen corner of the cabin, stirring reheated soup in a dented tin pot, when his voice rasped out behind her. Your scent is strong. She jumped, nearly dropping the ladle. Excuse me? Killian sat upright, the blanket low on his hips, his bare chest marked with fresh bruises and bandaged gashes. His silver eyes tracked her every move like a predator, not hostile, but intense enough to steal her breath. She blinked, confused. Is that a weird werewolf thing? It's a survival thing, he said, voice lower now. Everything about you, the way you move, the way you speak, it doesn't belong out here. Mara bristled. I grew up in forests like these. You don't smell like someone who belongs to this world. She crossed her arms. And what exactly does someone like me smell like? Killian tilted his head slightly. Untouched. That word made something twist in her stomach. Untouched by what? She asked quietly. He didn't answer. Instead, he reached for the water canister, his movements fluid but cautious. The skin around his wounds was beginning to knit together faster than it should have. She noticed it now. The bruises from yesterday had already faded into dull yellow. The claw mark across his ribs had closed. Your body heals fast, she said. Killian took a long drink before setting the bottle aside. Faster when I'm near someone who stabilizes me. Mara frowned. Someone who stabilizes you? He Didn't explain. Of course he didn't. She hated how his riddles both irritated and intrigued her. You're not answering anything directly, she muttered. You wouldn't believe most of it. Try me. He paused, eyes scanning the cabin walls like they might be listening. Then finally, there's a reason I was attacked. I broke a bond. I left my pack. Mara leaned back against the counter, arms crossed. Why? Killian's jaw tensed. Because they were forcing me to take a mate I didn't want. A bond that wasn't. Fated. Her brows lifted. Like arranged marriage? He gave a slow nod. Worse. When you're bound to someone magically, your soul never gets to choose. That word bound echoed in her head. You said something. Yesterday, Mara recalled, that I shouldn't have touched you. Killian looked at her again. Slowly, purposefully. You're not like others, he said. I don't know why yet, but something about your presence calms the shift. My wolf doesn't fight when you're near. Her throat tightened. And what does that mean? It means if my pack finds out, he said grimly, they'll come for you. Silence. Mara swallowed. The air around her felt heavier now, as if the very forest was listening through the wood. They already tried to kill you, she said. What's one more reason? Killian didn't speak for a moment. Then, in a voice quieter than before, I've never smelled anything like you. Smelled? He nodded. Our kind identifies mates through scent and energy. There's a frequency, like a soul pattern. Something in us knows when we've met the one who can balance our darkness. And you think I'm that person? He didn't answer, but the way he looked at her like she was some impossible miracle dropped from the sky was answer enough. She turned away, heart pounding. This was insane. She didn't believe in soulmates. She barely believed in trust anymore. People betrayed, people broke, people left. And yet, there was something in her gut that hadn't settled since the moment Killian collapsed in her doorway. Something old, something magnetic. That afternoon, Mara stepped outside for firewood. The forest was silent, too silent. She moved cautiously, bundled in her coat, boots crunching through the snow. Her breath clouded in the frigid air. She knelt beside the woodpile and began stacking logs into her arms. A snap echoed nearby, a branch maybe, or something stepping just wrong. She stood still, eyes scanning the trees. Then she saw it, a shape, just beyond the tree line, large, lean, watching, eyes glowing faintly. Amber. She didn't move. Neither did it. Then in the blink of an eye it was gone. She slammed the cabin door behind her, heart in her throat. Killian sat up instantly. What happened? Someone's out there, she said. Not a person, not like you, but not an animal either. Killian cursed under his breath. They found us. Who? Your pack? No, he said, voice grim. Worse, a scout. Mara froze. A scout for what? For the ones who deal in rogue blood, Killian replied. Hunters of our kind. If they've sended me, they'll return tonight. And if they sent you, his eyes met hers. A flare of panic, sharp and cold, shot through her. What do we do? She asked. He didn't hesitate. We prepare to run. Chapter 4. Building trust. The cabin walls can't hold the storm. The sun never truly rose in Black Hollow. Gray light filtered through skeletal branches, casting long shadows across the snow-covered forest floor. The wind howled through the pines, as if the trees themselves were warning her to run. But Mara didn't run. Not this time. She was in the cabin, pacing near the fire, arms crossed, adrenaline long since worn off. Across the room, Killian sat on the floor with his back to the wall, shirtless and bruised, sharpening a small, curved dagger that looked too old to belong in any modern world. You said we'd have to run, Mara said finally, her voice clipped. Killian didn't look up. We will, but not yet. You said they found us, that they'll come back. They always do. And you're just waiting? He lifted his eyes. Waiting isn't the same as hiding. Mara let out a breath, turning to the window. There were no visible threats yet, just snow-dusted trees and that eerie quiet. But something told her they weren't alone. The forest felt too still, like 1,000 lungs were holding their breath. She turned back toward him. You don't trust me, do you? Killian froze, just a flicker of hesitation in his hand before he resumed sharpening the blade. Trust gets people killed. Or saved. He didn't answer. Mara crossed to the hearth and sat on the worn wooden bench beside the fire. The heat didn't reach the hollow ache growing in her chest. I left someone behind, she said softly. A few months ago. Someone I thought I loved. Killian looked at her, his expression unreadable. He cheated. Lied to me. Said I was too damaged. Said I wasn't worth the trouble anymore. The words hurt more coming out than she expected. She hadn't told anyone, not even herself, but it spilled out now, as if Killian's presence cracked something open. I used to think that if you were loyal, if you gave everything, you'd be loved for it, she continued. Turns out, people love the version of you they can control. The moment you stop fitting their fantasy, they discard you. Killian finished, voice low. She met his eyes, startled. He nodded slowly. I know the feeling, he said. She waited. He didn't elaborate. Not right away. Then, after a long moment, I once believed in fate, in bonds, in love stronger than instinct. But I was taught the hard way fate doesn't care about fairness, only about balance. What does that mean? He was silent for a long time before replying. My pack arranged a bond for me when I turned 25. She was from a neighboring clan, pure blood, powerful lineage. I didn't want her, but I tried to make it work. I thought I could learn to love her. He paused. His jaw flexed. The sound of the blade against stone echoed softly in the silence. But she didn't want a mate. She wanted a weapon. Mara's throat tightened. She betrayed me, set me up to take the fall in a blood war between her family and mine. I was nearly executed by my own alpha, my own brother. You have a brother? She asked, surprised. Killian nodded. Had. His voice held a dangerous edge now. He made a choice, and it wasn't me. Mara swallowed hard. So, what happened? I ran. Killian said simply. I broke the bond. It nearly killed me, but I severed the link. That's forbidden in our kind. To reject the mate the moon casts for you is unnatural. It makes you something else, something unstable. Is that why they hunt you? That, and because I survived. Most don't after a broken soul bond. It makes your wolf mad, uncontrollable. But you're not mad, she said quietly. His silver eyes met hers again. You calm it. The air between them shifted again. That strange electricity returned, curling in her chest like a second heartbeat. She looked away, suddenly overwhelmed. That doesn't make sense, she said, almost defensively. I'm not one of you. I'm human. You're not supposed to be here, Killian finished, the corner of his mouth tilting in the faintest smile. I know, Mara chuckled nervously, hugging her knees. So why do I feel like I've known you? Killian didn't answer. He didn't need to. The day passed slowly, thick with tension. They didn't speak much after that. Killian rested. Mara cooked a meager meal from the cans in the cabin, soup and rice. She offered him half. He accepted it silently. As night crept in, Mara lit every candle she could find. She'd been alone in the dark before, but tonight, it felt different. Watched. She pulled a second blanket from the chest and settled into the corner across from Killian. He now sat by the door, dagger in hand, wrapped in the faded plaid of an old hunting coat she'd insisted he wear. You should sleep, he murmured. So should you, she replied. They stared at each other through the candlelight. Then he said softly, if something happens tonight, if they breach the cabin. She sat up straighter. What? I want you to run. Don't wait. Don't try to fight. Just go. Not happening. Mara, I didn't save you just to let you die in the snow. He stared at her for a long moment. His voice, when he finally spoke again, was rough. You're not like anyone I've ever known. She gave a half smile. You either. Most guys don't shapeshift into wolves and bleed all over my floor. He actually laughed. A short, hoarse sound, but genuine. It warmed something inside her that had been cold for years. They stayed like that for a while, trading glances through silence, breathing the same quiet tension. Then a knock, 3 slow taps. Mara's heart stopped. She shot to her feet. Killian stood in one fluid motion, blade raised. Another knock, gentle, deliberate. Then Mara? Her stomach dropped. It was a voice she hadn't heard in over 6 months. Soft, familiar. It was Derek, her ex. Impossible. He shouldn't be here. He couldn't be here. But she heard him, his exact tone, the way he said her name like an apology. Mara, it's me. I followed you. I'm sorry for everything. Please open the door. Her legs wobbled. Her hand reached out instinctively. Killian grabbed her wrist. No, he whispered, voice deadly serious. That's not him. She looked at him, terror creeping into her chest. But it sounds like they can mimic voices. Her blood went ice cold. Killian didn't blink. It's already begun. 5 dangerous obstacles. The voice at the door. Mara, please. I know I messed up. Just open the door. His voice sounded exactly like Derek's. Every syllable carried the same smooth desperation, the guilt-laced charm he used whenever he wanted something: forgiveness, attention, control. Mara stood frozen, her hand inches from the doorknob. The candlelight trembled. You don't understand, the voice outside pleaded. I had to find you. I've changed. I swear I've changed. Killian gripped her wrist harder. That's not him, he growled, barely above a whisper. It's one of them. It's trying to lure you out. She couldn't speak, couldn't move. Her brain scrambled to make sense of it. How could something else sound like him? You said they could mimic voices, she whispered shakily. Killian nodded. Not just voices. They can pull from your mind, your memories, your regrets. A quiet beat passed. Then, louder now, the voice outside continued. Mara, remember the cabin on Firebrook Ridge? You told me you'd always come here if you ever needed to disappear. I remembered that. Doesn't that mean something? Her stomach flipped. That was real. She had told Derek that. No one else knew. Killian's jaw tightened. Don't let it in. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst. Her legs felt weak, her mind racing. What if it was him? What if he'd somehow followed her? But then something shifted in the voice. A slight wrongness. Too smooth. Too calm beneath the desperation. Like a predator pretending to beg. I need you to open the door, baby, it said. Please, it's so cold out here. You don't want me to freeze, do you? The air turned sharp. Killian moved between her and the door, eyes flashing silver, blade in hand. Mara, the voice called again, sharper now. Let me in. This time, it wasn't pleading. It was commanding. A long, low growl rumbled from Killian's chest, no longer fully human. Something primal flickered across his face. Mara backed away slowly, her voice shaking. How do we stop it? We don't, Killian said. Not if it's just one. We wait for it to leave. And if it doesn't? He looked at her. Then I stopped pretending to be human. The knocking stopped. Silence fell like a sheet of snow. For a full minute, there was nothing. No breath, no wind, no footsteps, just the soft, uncanny quiet that only comes before blood. Then slam. The back wall of the cabin shuddered. Not the door. The wall. Something massive had hit it from the outside. Mara screamed. Killian pulled her behind him, positioning her near the hearth. It's trying to come through the back. The wall cracked. Splinters rained down as claws dug through rotting wood. Killian spun, eyes burning silver, body coiled and ready. Stay behind me, no matter what. Mara watched in terrified as he changed. Not fully, not yet. But his skin rippled, veins darkening, muscles expanding. His teeth sharpened, eyes glowing like molten silver. He let out a sound that wasn't human, a warning, a promise, a challenge. The wall buckled again. Then silence. Everything stopped. Mara held her breath. Killian didn't move. The silence stretched. And then a long, unnatural voice whispered through the crack. She smells like fate. Mara's knees gave out. Killian lunged forward, slamming his palm against the weakening wood, roaring in defiance. The whisper faded into the woods, like smoke dissolving into night. The pressure lifted. Whatever it was gone, for now. Hours passed before either of them moved. Mara sat curled on the hearthrug, a blanket around her shoulders, hands trembling no matter how tightly she clutched the mug of tea. The fire burned low, casting long shadows. Killian crouched by the back wall, inspecting the damage. The wood was splintered and clawed, but hadn't broken through. Barely. They weren't trying to break in, he muttered. She looked up. Then what were they doing? He stood, face unreadable. Marking you. Mara's blood went cold. What does that mean? Killian paced slowly, his tone grim. The moment you pulled me inside, you crossed into their world. Tonight they wanted to see what you were, who you were. They came to test the scent. She shook her head. But I'm not one of you. You're not just anything, he said, voice sharp with tension. That thing spoke of fate. That's not a word they use lightly. Mara stared into the fire. Her voice barely rose. Then tell me what I am. Killian knelt in front of her. Not the fierce, shifting creature from earlier, but the man again. The guarded, fractured man who didn't know what to do with gentleness. You're something I don't understand yet, he said quietly. But I know what I feel. My wolf, it calms near you. That doesn't happen unless a bond is forming. Her lips parted. But that's not possible, she whispered. You said bonds only happen between shifters. Killian shook his head. No, that's what they teach us. But there are stories forbidden ones of humans bound to wolves, of fate reaching across the line. And what happens to those pairs? They're hunted, he said, torn apart. Because when that bond is real, when it's cosmic, it threatens everything the old bloodlines control. Her hands trembled harder now. So I'm, what? A threat to your world just because I saved your life? He exhaled, slow and painful. Because you might be the one thing that can save mine. The night passed without further attacks, but sleep didn't come. Mara stayed close to the fire, watching shadows move across the walls, Killian's slow breathing the only anchor in the dark. Every creak of wood made her heart jump. Every whisper of wind outside felt like another voice mimicking someone she once knew. But somewhere deep inside, something had changed. The fear was still there, but so was the connection. She had stepped into his world, yes, but now part of her wondered if it had always been pulling her, if her nightmares, her loneliness, her dreams of wolves and forests and silver eyes had been memories she didn't yet understand. Killian stirred in his sleep, and she whispered into the dark, not knowing if he could hear, I think I was meant to find you. Chapter 6. The secret unveiled. What you are. They fear. Mara didn't wait until morning. She hadn't slept anyway. The embers in the hearth had gone cold, but her thoughts burned with relentless intensity. Questions she could no longer contain, emotions she could no longer shove into quiet corners. Killian stirred by the back wall, the faint light of dawn casting shadows across his bare chest. His coat had slipped off during the night. The claw marks on his side had faded to angry red scars. Inhuman healing, she reminded herself. Still, he looked worn, and still, beautiful, in that dangerous, tortured way. But she wasn't here to admire him. Not anymore. She stood, walked across the room, and said bluntly, tell me everything. Killian opened his eyes slowly. His expression didn't change, but his body tensed. I mean it, she said, stepping closer. No more half answers. No more riddles. No more cryptic warnings. If I'm going to keep risking my life for you, if I'm already marked like you said, I deserve to know what's going on. He studied her for a long, heavy moment. Then, to her surprise, he nodded once. All right, he said. But once I tell you, there's no going back. I already crossed that line. Another silence passed between them, but this time it felt like the deep breath before diving off a cliff. Killian slowly stood and gestured for her to sit near the fireplace. He knelt across from her, hands resting on his knees, expression grim. Our kind has ruled the hidden wilds for thousands of years, he began. Shifters. Yes, wolves. Mostly, organized into bloodline clans, each bound by magic, territory, and law. We have our rituals, our alpha succession, our oaths, all governed by the Moon Treaty. Mara blinked. Moon Treaty? A pact made during the last blood eclipse. To avoid extinction, it bound all pacts to certain rules, mating laws, land boundaries, secrecy. Violating it means war. He leaned forward slightly, his voice lowered. But there was always a legend, a prophecy, that one day, someone would come, someone not of the clans, who would carry the blood of both worlds, human and wolf. That's not possible, she said, trying to steady her voice. Killian's gaze pierced her. No, it wasn't supposed to be. A chill traveled down her spine. He continued. The prophecy says this person would be a balance point, a bridge between two races, the one who could either destroy the clans or save them from collapse. Mara tried to process that. And you think that's me? I didn't, Killian admitted. Until last night. She shook her head. But I'm not. I've never shifted. I don't have claws. I don't hear heartbeats through walls. Not all signs are physical, he said. But your presence, your energy, it does something to the bond. It heals. I'm not magical, she whispered. Magic doesn't care what you think you are, he replied. Only what you carry. Her heart thudded. And that's why they came last night, she asked. The thing that pretended to be Derek? Killian nodded. Scouts for the old clans. They caught your scent. They were testing it. And what if they confirm it? Then you become the most hunted being in shifter history. A wave of nausea surged through her. This can't be happening, she muttered. I just wanted to disappear for a while. I didn't ask for any of this. I know, Killian said gently. Neither did I. That softened her more than she wanted to admit. But she still had more questions. You said you rejected your mate, she said. That it nearly killed you. If I'm bonded to you, what does that mean for me? Killian hesitated. That depends, he said. If the bond completes naturally, You and I will be tied soul to soul. Pain, instinct, even dreams. We'll be able to feel what the other feels. You'll share my strength, my lifespan. And if it doesn't, then the energy between us will keep building until it consumes us. She stared at him, stunned. Is that why I feel like I'm burning every time I look at you? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Killian's jaw clenched. Yes. Mara turned away, breath trembling. Everything in her life had been broken before this. Her relationships, her sense of self, her belief in love. And now, she was being told she might be part of some ancient prophecy that she was destined to bond with a man who wasn't even fully human. A man who had barely survived the last bond. This is too much, she whispered. I know, and yet I don't want to leave. Killian said nothing, but his expression said everything. They sat in silence for a long while, the only sound the pop of a burning log. Then Killian spoke again. There's something else you should know. Mara looked up. My clan. They're not just hunting me for breaking a bond. They're hunting me because I'm the last of my bloodline, the alpha line. If I die, the power shifts to the Black Fangs, and they're the ones who attacked you. He nodded. They want full control. No treaties, no balance, only blood and war. She swallowed hard. Then you can't go back. No, he said. And now, neither can you. A beat passed. Then, gently, Killian reached out, not to grab her, but to offer his hand. Not forceful, not possessive, just open. I won't let them take you, he said. But you need to decide if you're willing to stand with me. Mara looked at his hand. Her whole life had been a series of closed doors and wrong turns. But this moment, this felt like the first real choice she'd ever had. Not running, not surviving, choosing. She reached out and placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, warm and steady, and the moment they touched, a pulse, a spark that wasn't fire.it, traveled up her arm, into her chest, her lungs, her heart. It didn't burn, it bloomed, like something ancient had been asleep inside her. And now it was waking up. Killian gasped softly, their eyes locked. You felt that too, she whispered. He nodded. Then what happens now? Killian's voice was low, fierce. Now, we prepare for war. Chapter 7. Betrayal or Sacrifice. The lie that burns. The day after the truth changed everything. Mara woke alone. The sun hung low in the sky, barely peeking through the frost-laced windows. The fire had died. The blanket she'd curled up in was still tangled around her legs. But the space beside her, the one where Killian had kept watch all night, was empty. A note lay on the table. Just one sentence, written in quick, slanted handwriting. Don't follow me. Her heart sank. No, no, no. She stood too quickly, the cabin spinning briefly. Her pulse thundered as she opened the door and stepped into the icy morning. Bootprints, leading away from the cabin, straight into the forest. She didn't hesitate. The snow was fresh, untouched, except for Killian's trail weaving through the trees. Mara followed it, ducking under low branches, her boots crunching against frozen leaves. Her lungs burned with cold air. She didn't care. He'd left her, not with anger, not with cruelty, but with fear. Fear of what the bond meant, of what she meant. The forest whispered around her, trees groaning in the wind, ice falling like glass from their limbs. Every sound made her heart twist. She kept expecting to hear footsteps behind her, growls, voices that didn't belong, but there was only her breath and the trail. After nearly an hour, she found him, standing alone in a snow-covered clearing, at the edge of a ridge that overlooked the valley. A river wound through the woods below, shining like black glass. Killian didn't turn when she approached, but he spoke. I told you not to come. Mara's voice cracked. Too bad. The silence that followed was heavier than anger. It was disappointment, hurt. Why did you leave? She asked. I had to, he replied, before it was too late. Too late for what? He finally turned to face her. His silver eyes were dimmer than before. Wounded. For you. The wind gusted, whipping her hair around her face. I'm not afraid of this, she said. Of you. Of what we are. You should be. He growled. You don't understand what the bond does to people like me. Then help me understand, she said, stepping closer. Because right now, all I know is that we finally had something real. Something that meant something. And you ran from it. Killian's jaw tensed. I can feel everything you feel now, she continued, voice trembling. That's what you said. So don't lie to me. I'm not lying, he said. Yes, you are, she snapped. You think pushing me Away will protect me. But all you're doing is proving that every person who ever left me was right. That stopped him. His expression shifted. I'm not them, he said quietly. Then don't act like them. Mara felt her chest heaving now, from effort and emotion. She hadn't cried yet, not through any of this, but it threatened now, heavy, behind her eyes. He stepped forward slowly, close enough that she could see the fine scar beneath his jaw, the storm in his eyes, the guilt that clung to him like another skin. I didn't just come out here to protect you, he said. Mara stared at him. Then why? He hesitated, then softly, painfully, because I met with someone. Her heart stuttered. What? Killian looked away. There's a neutral pack that lives in the outer territories, nomads, not bound to bloodlines. I sent a signal. They came to the ridge last night. And you didn't tell me? Her voice cracked. I had to know if there was a way to break the bond without hurting you. The words hit like a slap. Mara stepped back, ice flooding her limbs. You were trying to break it? He looked pained. I didn't say I wanted to. But if there was a way to free you, to keep the prophecy from destroying your life. You already said breaking a bond nearly killed you, she said, voice rising. What did you think would happen to me? I thought it would spare you, he shouted. His voice echoed through the trees. He swallowed, breathing hard. I've seen what fate does to people like you, humans caught in our world. You either become a ghost or a weapon. Mara's hands trembled. And what did they say? This pack you met? He paused. They said the bond is already beyond severing. She closed her eyes. They called you a moonborn, he added. 1 in 1,000, human by blood, but carrying ancestral magic dormant for generations. So I was always going to end up like this, she whispered. He nodded. I'm sorry. You should have told me. I couldn't, Killian said. Because the moment I looked at you this morning, I didn't want to let go. And that scared me more than anything. Mara turned away, anger burning behind her eyes. You don't get to make that decision for both of us, she said. You don't get to take away my choice just because you're afraid. He stepped closer. I made a mistake. I thought I was protecting you, but I see it now every time I try to walk away. It just hurts worse. She turned to face him. Again, her voice was low, aching. You broke something when you left that note. I'll fix it, he whispered. I don't know if you can. His hands found hers gently, slowly. Then let me try. Starting now. She looked down at their joined hands, and though she wanted to pull away, she didn't, not yet. But the silence between them said one thing clearly. The bond might be fate, but trust had to be earned. Chapter 8. Emotional breakthrough. The bond forged in blood. Snow was falling again by the time they returned to the cabin. Not the gentle flakes of a peaceful winter, but cold, sharp pieces of sky, fast, biting, almost angry. Mara hadn't said a word since the clearing. Killian didn't try to fill the silence. He knew better now. Their bond might have survived the night, but something between them still hung fractured, stretched too thin between truth and betrayal. Yet neither of them had walked away. That meant something, maybe everything. The cabin came into view, but both of them stopped at the same time. The door was open, and no wind had done that. Killian's body tensed beside her, hand tightening around the dagger he'd kept strapped at his side since the first attack. His eyes flashed silver. His voice, when it came, was low and feral. Stay behind me. Mara didn't argue this time. They moved slowly. Killian crossed the threshold first, body angled, ready to shift in an instant. The cabin was dark, and no fire. No sound, just the soft creak of wood and the faint scent of something metallic in the air. Mara stepped in behind him and froze. The walls were marked, strange runes scratched into the wood, deep and deliberate, carved with claws. Symbols that pulsed with an energy she didn't understand, but her body recognized it all the same. Her head spun, her stomach turned. What are those? She whispered. Killian's face was pale, his jaw clenched. Blood marks, old magic, warnings, or invitations. To what? He didn't answer. He stepped toward the far wall, inspecting the deepest mark. Mara's eyes tracked the strange pattern, a symbol that looked like a circle with jagged slashes through the center. Killian, she said slowly. What does that one mean? He stared at it for a long time, then whispered, it means chosen. A sudden gust of wind slammed the open door shut behind them with a bang. Mara jumped. Killian turned just in time to catch the scent, and then they were not alone. A shadow detached from the corner, a blur of motion. Killian shoved Mara behind him just as the creature lunged, black-furred, too fast for the eye to follow. Its body was humanoid but twisted its limbs wrong, like they'd grown from broken bones and stayed that way. Its mouth split open with a sound that didn't belong in this world. Killian transformed mid-leap, his body shifting in a fluid, violent ripple of muscle and bone. He met the creature midair and tackled it away from Mara. The cabin exploded into chaos. Growls, snarls, crashing wood. Mara stumbled back, heart slamming in her chest as the two shifters collided again and again. Killian was strong, faster than she could have imagined, but the other one was vicious, unhinged, fueled by something dark. A claw swiped Killian across the chest, blood sprayed the wall. No, Mara screamed. Killian roared in return, teeth sinking into the creature's shoulder. They smashed into the table, splinters flying. The enemy howled, throwing Killian off just enough to stagger him, and then it turned toward her, eyes black, mouth open in a hiss. It lunged. Mara grabbed the fire poker and swung with everything she had. The blow landed hard against its skull, enough to knock it sideways. Killian was there in a second, ripping it down, teeth and claws tearing through fur and bone. The thing let out one last shriek and then silence, only heavy breathing. Blood on the floor. Killian panted beside the now still body, his wolf form fading slowly as he collapsed to his knees, shifting back into himself, wounded, barely conscious. Mara ran to him, catching him as he fell. "I've got you," she whispered. You're okay. He shook his head weakly. "You should have run." "Not again," she said. "You don't get to face this alone anymore." He looked up at her, blood trickling from his lip, silver eyes burning into hers. "I thought I could protect you by keeping you away," he rasped. "But all I've done is pull you deeper. Maybe I was always meant to fall in," she whispered. Their faces were close now. Too close, but neither of them looked away. And then his hand came up, gently brushing her cheek, leaving a streak of blood like a mark. "You're stronger than me," he said. "No," she whispered. "I'm with you." Then her lips were on his. The kiss wasn't soft, it was fierce, aching. Everything instead poured into one impossible moment. His hands gripped her waist. Her fingers tangled in his hair. The bond between them snapped into place like a lock turning in an ancient door. Mara felt it. So did Killian. A flood of warmth, of energy, a connection so deep it silenced the fear, silenced everything. He pulled back just barely, forehead pressed to hers. "You don't know what this means," he whispered. "I don't need to," she replied. "I feel it." He closed his eyes, and then the mark on the wall burned red. Both of them turned, the runes that had glowed faintly now pulsed with heat, magic coursing through the cabin like blood through veins. "They know," Killian said, breath catching. "Who?" "My old pack. The bond's been sealed. It's real now. There's no hiding it." Mara's heart raced. "Then what do we do?" Killian stood, wincing as he pulled her up with him. "We stop running," he said. His voice was low, certain, unshakable. "We fight." Chapter 9. Love revealed. "You were meant for my darkness." The wind outside raged, but inside the cabin, everything had stilled. The creature's body smoldered in the corner, vanishing into ash as Killian's protective ward took hold. Whatever it had been, whatever sent it, was gone for now. But the danger wasn't. If anything, it had grown sharper, because the bond was sealed, and the moment it happened, the clans felt it. Mara paced slowly, the fire behind her casting her shadow in wild shapes across the wall. Her heart was still pounding, but not from fear anymore. From what had changed, from what she couldn't ignore. Killian sat by the table, wiping blood from his chest. His wounds were healing faster again, the jagged slash over his ribs already sealing with a silvery shimmer. He was quiet not because he didn't have words, but because he was choosing them carefully. The kiss still lingered between them, not just on their lips, but in the air, in the pulse of the bond. A magnetic warmth tugged at her, constant and steady now, not overwhelming, not consuming, just true. "Are you afraid?" he asked finally. Mara turned toward him. "No," she said. He looked surprised. "Even now? With everything you know?" She stepped closer. "You are the first real thing I've felt in a long time. Even before the shift, before the bond. The moment you collapsed on that floor, something in me knew." His jaw flexed. "You felt the bond forming." "I did," she whispered, "but I was scared to name it." He stood slowly, cautious with his still tender ribs. Their eyes met. Killian's voice was quiet. "They'll come for us now. I know. And I'm not just talking about a few scouts. If the Alpha Council feels the bond solidify, they'll see you as a threat to their entire bloodline hierarchy. A human mated to a pure-blooded heir? That's blasphemy. Mara stepped even closer. Then let them come. Killian blinked. I spent most of my life afraid, she said. Afraid of being left. Afraid of not being enough. And now I find out I might be part of some ancient prophecy that could bring down your entire world, and I'm supposed to walk away from this? She pressed her palm to his chest, just over his heart. From you? Killian inhaled like she'd knocked the breath out of him. His hands found her waist slowly, like he couldn't quite believe she was real. I'm dangerous, he whispered. I've always been drawn to the edge, she replied. Maybe that's what fate really is. Not safety, not comfort, but meeting someone who matches your chaos. His head dipped forward, pressing to hers. You were meant for my darkness, and you were made for mine, she said. And then, his mouth was on hers again. This time, there was no fear and no hesitation. It was all heat, all hunger, and something deeper than either had words for. He kissed her like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning for years. Like fate had finally given him back what it had once ripped away. She responded with everything she had, every scar, every secret, every shattered part she'd sworn to hide. It all melted into the bond. He lifted her easily, carrying her to the bed they hadn't dared sleep in since the first attack. The cabin seemed to hold its breath as they lay together, firelight dancing across bare skin and whispered promises. And for the first time since this all began, they weren't running. Not from fate, not from fear, not from each other. They let go. Let the bond root itself in touch, in breath, in heat. Later, wrapped in a worn blanket and in the silence that only comes after truth, Mara lay with her head on Killian's chest. His heartbeat was steady beneath her ear. Outside, snow fell. Again, softer this time, gentler. Why me? She asked quietly. Why would fate choose me to be this bridge between worlds? Killian ran his fingers through her hair. Because you're strong enough to break the rules. She closed her eyes. I don't feel strong. You held me together when I was half dead, he said. You stood in front of a monster with nothing but a fireplace poker. You kissed me when you could have run. Don't ever doubt your strength. She smiled. Faintly. You have a poetic side, he smirked. Don't tell the others. She propped herself up on her elbow, studying him. You've changed. He raised a brow. How so? You don't look like someone running anymore. His smile faded, replaced by something deeper. Because I'm not from you, not from this. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. I spent so long thinking my curse was to be alone, he said. To fight, to lose, to bleed, but never to love. Her breath hitched. But then you looked at me like I wasn't broken. He continued. Even when I was bleeding all over your floor, you didn't look away. You saw me, and I think maybe that's the magic, not the prophecy. You. Mara leaned down and kissed him gently, soft this time, slow. When she pulled back, she whispered, We'll survive this. He nodded. We will. But as they held each other in the quiet, something shifted in the air, a pulse of energy outside the cabin. Killian's head snapped toward the window. What? Mara asked. Sitting up, he rose to his feet, eyes glowing. They're close. Who? The Black Fangs. Her blood ran cold. How many? Killian didn't blink. Too many. Chapter 10. The pack descends. Blood on snow. The wind shifted and Killian froze. They're here, he whispered. Mara was on her feet in an instant, her hand instinctively reaching for the iron poker near the hearth. It felt almost laughable now, facing ancient werewolf warriors with a fireplace tool, but her grip didn't waver. Killian's eyes glowed silver in the dim cabin light. He was already halfway into his shift, bones beneath skin, preparing for war. How many? She asked. He inhaled slowly, face darkening. 5. No, 6. All Black Fangs. Her stomach twisted. Can we fight them? He looked at her, deadly calm. We don't have a choice. He crossed to her and placed both hands on her shoulders. Listen to me. They're not here to scare us this time. They're here to end us. His fingers were warm, grounding her, as the chill of fear tried to crawl in. But we don't run anymore, she said, breath shaky. A faint smile tugged at his mouth. No, we don't. Suddenly, howls erupted outside, low, guttural, layered in chilling harmony. It wasn't just a warning. It was an announcement. They had come for blood. Killian pressed his forehead against hers. Stay inside until I draw them out. You're not going out there alone. If they see you, he said, they'll go straight for you. They know you're the bond, the prophecy. You're the real threat now. Mara stepped back, defiance in her eyes. And you're not protecting me by dying. He stared at her, then slowly nodded. Then we do it together. Outside, the first shadow passed the window, tall, broad, monstrous. Killian reached into the chest and pulled out a blade etched with silver and obsidian. He handed it to her. Take this, he said. Shifter forged. It can cut through any of them. She took it with steady hands. Where'd you get it? My mother's, he said, before the pack turned on. Her too. Her breath caught, but there was no time for questions. Because the Black Fangs had arrived, the cabin door burst inward, not from a knock, but from brute force. The first attacker stormed in like a storm in human skin, eyes burning yellow, claws half shifted, snarling. Killian met him head on, slamming into him with enough power to crack the floorboards. Mara dodged behind the table just as a second Black Fang lunged through the side window, shattering it in a rain of glass and snow. She spun, ducked, slashed the blade, catching the intruder's shoulder with a crackle of magic. He howled and fell back, stunned by her precision. Killian roared behind her, now fully shifted, a massive black wolf streaked with silver, fangs bared and blood glinting across his muzzle. The room became chaos. 3 more Black Fangs poured in, moving like liquid shadow. Mara dodged one, parried another, her body running on instinct and the bond. She wasn't just guessing anymore, she felt Killian's movements, knew when to strike and when to duck. It was like dancing inside a storm, but they were still outnumbered. A blow to her ribs knocked the wind out of her, sending her crashing into the hearth. The blade clattered to the floor beside her. One of the Black Fangs loomed over her, claws raised, then a blur. Killian. He slammed into the enemy wolf, sending them both crashing through the far wall into the snow outside. Mara crawled to her feet, gasping, blade back in hand. Only 2 attackers remained. One hesitated, eyes flicking to the ruined cabin, to the chaos outside, and then turned and ran. But the last one didn't. He stood in the center of the room, calmly pulling off his hooded coat. He wasn't like the others. His eyes were not yellow, they were black, cold and bottomless. You must be the girl, he said smoothly. Mara raised the blade. You must be the one who dies last. He smiled. You think this is love? He asked. This thing between you and that rogue alpha? I know it is. Then I hope you enjoy watching him bleed. He lunged, but Mara was faster. She ducked low, twisting, driving the blade up into his side. And with a flash of silver light, the mark on her wrist blazed. The bond answered. The Black Fang let out a guttural scream and disintegrated into smoke, vanishing into nothing. She stood trembling, chest heaving, the blade still glowing in her grip. Outside, the howls faded. Moments later, Killian reappeared, shifting back, mid-step, bloody and battered but alive. His shoulder was torn, lip split, but his eyes found her. They met in the rec center of the cabin. You're hurt, she said, reaching for him. He pulled her into his arms. So are you. She laughed shakily into his chest, but neither let go. Not this time. Not ever again. Chapter 11. Resolution. The moon knows her name. The silence after battle was always the loudest. The cabin lay in ruins. The front door was splintered, the windows shattered, and claw marks stained the floorboards in long, savage streaks. Blood, some of it Killian's, some not, dried dark against the walls. The air still smelled of smoke, steel, and magic, but they were alive. Mara sat on the broken steps outside the cabin, wrapped in Killian's coat, the silver-edged dagger still resting on her lap. Her body ached in every direction, and her arms trembled despite the weight of the blanket. But she didn't cry. Not this time. Not after what they'd just survived. The early morning mist clung to the trees like ghosts. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled, not in warning or challenge, but in mourning. Killian stepped out from what was left of the doorframe, holding a steaming mug in his scraped-up hands. Chamomile, he said. She raised a tired eyebrow. Seriously? Don't underestimate tea in a time of war. She took the cup with a small smile. He sat beside her on the step, wincing slightly. His shirt was gone, his chest wrapped in fresh bandages. Bruises bloomed down his ribs, and scratches still glowed faintly across his shoulders, though they'd begun to heal. She looked at him, at his battered strength, and shook her head. You shouldn't have made it out. Neither should you, he said, not looking at her. But here we are. They sat in silence for a while. Birds returned to the trees tentatively. The forest exhaled, and Mara finally said the thing that had been swelling inside her chest since the fight ended. So what now? Killian didn't answer right away. I sent a message, he said after a moment, to the Moonshade Alliance. She blinked. That's not a name you've mentioned before. They're not a pack, he explained. More like a neutral order, old, secretive. They don't swear loyalty to bloodlines. They protect those who fall between worlds. Like me? He turned his head, met her eyes. Exactly like you. She wrapped her hands tighter around the mug. What will they want? To meet you, he said. To see the bond for themselves. To understand what you are. And what am I exactly? She asked, voice soft. Killian exhaled. You're something that hasn't existed in centuries. Human-born, but bound by fate to the alpha line. Your blood carries dormant magic, but your soul carries the bond. You're not just the prophecy. You're proof that the old ways are breaking. She stared into the mist. And people are going to hate me for that, aren't they? Yes, he said without hesitation. And others will worship you. She gave a bitter smile. That's somehow worse. He reached for her hand, sliding his fingers between hers. You won't go through any of it alone. She glanced down at their joined hands. Do you regret it? She asked. Killian turned sharply to her. Regret what? The bond. Us. Everything that's happened. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, before I met you, my future was already gone. My bloodline was hunted. My name stripped from the pack registers. I was already dead. He turned toward her fully now, his hand lifting to gently brush a leaf from her wind-tangled hair. You didn't ruin my life, Mara. You gave it back to me. Her eyes burned. Don't say things like that. I'll fall harder. Then fall, he whispered. Because I'm already on my knees. The air around them shifted not with fear or violence, but something else, a presence. They both looked up at the same time, above the trees, high through the breaking clouds. The full moon shone through the daylight sky, pale, cold, watching. And Mara felt it, like something ancient had just acknowledged her. The bond flared softly inside her chest, not in pain or confusion, but in calm. As if the moon itself had just whispered, I see you. Did you feel that? She asked. Killian nodded, wide-eyed. I've never felt it during the day before. What does it mean? He stood slowly. It means the Moonshade Alliance will come sooner than I thought. Mara rose with him, her legs still shaky but holding. Do we trust them? No, he said, but we don't have to. We only need time. And now, we've bought some. She looked toward the tree line. What happens when they ask me to choose? Between what? Between the human world I came from, she said, and this one. He took a slow breath. Then we remind them that you don't belong to either. He turned to her, voice low and steady. You belong to yourself. That settled something deep in her. Maybe she wasn't made for one world or the other. Maybe she was the bridge, not the prophecy, the proof. They stood together in the cold morning light, two wounded souls bound by fate and forged in fire. The ruins of the cabin still smoldered behind them, but the future stretched ahead like untouched snow. Killian squeezed her hand. When the council comes, we'll face them together. And after? He smiled faintly. We build something new. She looked toward the horizon, not in fear, but with a quiet resolve. Maybe it wouldn't be easy. Maybe peace would never come the way she imagined. But with Killian at her side, and the bond inside her soul, she would face it, all of it, because now, the moon knew her name, and it would never forget. Chapter 12. Final outro. A future written in stars. 3 weeks later, the snow had melted, the forest had begun to breathe again, not just in the wind rustling through the trees, but in the way life crept back in. Birds nested higher in the branches. Tracks of small animals dotted the dirt. The ice no longer bit into your lungs when you stepped outside. Mara stood in the clearing beside the river, where the water had begun to thaw and trickle like a quiet promise. She still wasn't sure what she was, but she was finally sure of who she was becoming. Behind her, the new cabin rose from stone and timber, nothing grand, but solid. Built by their hands, not taken from someone else's past. A roof they'd raised together. A home not haunted by blood or betrayal. Killian emerged from the trees, bare-armed and damp with sweat, a satchel of foraged herbs slung over his shoulder. He looked more like himself now, still fierce, still powerful, but no longer hunted, not by anyone else, and no longer by his past. You were gone longer than usual, Mara said as he approached. He dropped the satchel with a grin. I was picking the plants you hate the smell of. Oh good, she said, wrinkling her nose. The swampy ones, they help wounds knit faster. My wounds are fine, your stubbornness isn't. She rolled her eyes but couldn't help the smile that broke through. Killian kissed her temple and reached for her hand. intertwining their fingers. The touch still sparked that slow, ancient heat, not like a fire now, but like embers, steady, enduring. I had another dream last night, she said as they walked toward the riverbank. Bad? No, strange. I saw wolves, dozens of them standing in a circle, watching me, but they weren't angry. They bowed. Killian's hand tightened slightly. I've heard stories, he said, that when the moon accepts a soul bond, outside the bloodline, the old spirits gather to witness, to bless it. Is that what it was? I think so. Mara stopped walking. I'm not sure I believe in destiny anymore, she said, but I believe in choice, and I keep choosing you. Killian turned toward her, brushing a lock of hair from her face. Then maybe choice is the real magic. They stood there for a long moment, just breathing in each other. The quiet hum of the forest, the sound of water. Then Mara said, Are you ready for them? Killian exhaled. No, they both knew who she meant, the Moonshade Alliance emissaries. They were coming at sunset, to speak, to test, to decide. You'll be with me? She asked. His answer was immediate. Every second. They turned to head back toward the cabin, and halfway there, Mara paused. Do you ever wonder, she said slowly, what would have happened if I hadn't opened the door that night? Killian looked back at her, the same silver fire in his eyes she saw the first time he fell into her life. I would have died. No, I mean no, he said, cutting her off gently. I mean it. I would have died, not just from the wounds, from the weight of it all. He stepped closer. You didn't just save me. You found me. Mara's throat tightened, and then, almost laughing through emotion, she said, You're lucky I'm into brooding wolf men. Killian raised a brow. And you're lucky I'm into wild-eyed human women who stab monsters with kitchen knives. She laughed, really laughed, and for the first time, it didn't feel like a release of fear. It felt like freedom. That night, the stars came out early. The moon hung full and silver above the tree line, casting a glow across the clearing like a spotlight. The emissaries hadn't arrived yet, but they would. Mara stood outside the cabin, wrapped in a wool cloak, watching the night. She no longer feared it. Killian joined her, a warm silence between them. Are you ready? He asked. No, she said, then smiled. But I'm not running, he nodded. Side by side, they stood as the wind shifted, and in the distance, a howl echoed through the trees. Not a threat, a summon. They're here, Killian said. Mara looked toward the horizon and whispered, Then let them see us, as we are, together.